What is going on, everyone? Gaston right here, and this is my very first review for my channel. So today I'm going to be talking about my lenses. I'm a photographer. I've been doing photography for about 7 years. I'll tell you a little bit about my story and how I landed with so many Sony lenses. I wasn't born shooting with Sony. I actually shot before. My first camera was a Nikon camera. Then I switched to Canon. I shot with Panasonics. Right now I'm shooting with a GH5, as you guys cannot see. Actually have a Canon overhead right here, but Sony is what I like primarily for my photography work. You can check me out, Gaston S Photo, on Instagram to see my work. I started shooting product photography. I own a company. I manufacture tattoo devices, and that's what got me started in photography. You know, I owned the company for about 12 years, and had to take pictures to put them on the web, and that's how my interest for photography sparked. Now I actually love portrait lifestyle. That's what I like to shoot a lot. I mean, I have a studio. I do a lot of portrait at the studio and stuff like that. So I'm going to be talking about how these lenses actually fit my style and my job. So there's a little bit of everything right here. I don't have them organized in a particular way. Actually, I have them from bigger to smaller, kind of. These ones that I have right here, the only reason why I have them, these are two Canon lenses. This one right here was my very first lens. Look at this. It's this is a 18 to 55, really cheap. I think this lens, if you would go and buy, it's like under $100. But I shot with that lens for a while. That was the first one for my Canon. I don't have any of my Nikon stuff anymore. Unfortunately, I sold that. This one right here, I think, was an upgrade. This is the 10 to 18, a Y1. Again, it's not that expensive, but I mean, I shot a lot with these lenses. I did some stuff for YouTube as well. So with these lenses out of the way, we're going to put them right here. We're going to talk about the Sony. Now, I have Sony and I have Sigma for Sony lenses. My Sigma collection is not as big, and there are a couple of lenses that I like about Sigma. Not everything, but I'm very happy with everything that I got from Sony. Sony is really stepping it up, and at first I was just dealing with a couple of lenses, and Sony's actually delivering right now. So this is what I managed to have. So let's start with the biggest one. So this is the 70-200. Let me just show you guys right here. Switch cameras. So the 70-200, this is one of my favorite lenses for outdoor photography. I use it a lot for portraiture, and this lens is very sharp. It's a very sharp lens because it's telephoto length. It's the lens that is really good for also shallow depth of field. Even though it's a 2.8, you manage to get like really nice bokeh with this lens that I have right here. Now, disclaimer, this video is not going to be super technical because I want to go over all the lenses. I'm going to be telling you why I like these lenses for and what I use them for, and talk a little bit about the specs, but not to go overboard and boring. So this lens, what is this lens for? Well, I like it because, it gives me a very far reach. So if I'm going to be outside and shooting maybe some landscape, and again, I don't do landscape photography, but if I'm going to have a subject in the outdoors, for sure this is the lens that I'm going to bring with me. It's a little bit heavy, probably one of the heaviest lenses that I owned, along with this one that we're going to talk in a bit, but it's a really good lens. The construction is, I believe, it's magnesium. It's kind of like metallic, and it's a little bit heavy, but again, it has a tripod stand right here, so you can mount it on your tripod so you don't lean all the way on the camera. Really good for portraits. Now, it can be used for a lot of things. Moving forward, this one that I have right here, this is my second biggest lens. This is a lens that I was on the fence about getting, but when Sigma actually released the native version for Sony, I jumped on board, and let me tell you, this one was one of the lenses that I actually shot the most when I shot outdoors. Now, this lens right here has become my go-to lens. The reason why this lens has become my go-to lens is because the quality of this lens, the sharpness of this lens, and also the actual build of this lens is really solid. It is by far the biggest lens I own. When you compare this one with this one, you guys can see it's super big. Check it out. Look at the optics. Really big. Let's check it out like that. that. There's a lot of glass right there. Now, this lens, it's a 105 1.4 millimeters. So with this lens, you basically get great telephoto capabilities. You know, I love it for portraits. One of the lenses that I love the most for portrait prime is actually the 85, which is this one right here. But this one actually has become kind of like a replacement for the 85, at least when I'm outdoors. I like it because it gives me an amazing bokeh. If you're a bokeh fan, this lens is gonna give you the smoothest bokeh out of all these lenses, at least in my opinion. But not only that, this lens is sharp across the way. You know, this lens is sharp in the center, is sharp on the side, it's super sharp. I gotta say that it's probably sharper than this lens right here, than the 70-200, and probably sharper than the 85 1.4 from Sony. But we'll get to that lens in a little bit. Now, the build quality, like I mentioned before, it's great. It's also a metallic construction. This lens comes with a collar that allows you as well to attach it to the tripod like this one. So I recommend this lens if you really are into photography and the outdoors, portraiture. This lens is going to be, you're not going to be disappointed with this lens. It's a little bit heavier, probably maybe about the same as this lens. But again, I'm not disappointed. I think I paid like around $1,700 for this lens. And let me tell you, it's well worth it. A lot of the pictures that I shot in my last post on Instagram have been shot with this lens. It's made in Japan, really good construction. So moving forward. Now, this one right here, this is the 24-105. Okay, this is an f4 lens. So it's not the shallow depth of field king, but this lens is really good for videos. I use this lens a lot for my videos. I shoot a lot of behind the scenes. I do a lot of stuff for work as well, product shoots. So this lens is great, especially because when I shoot products, I shoot product with light. And you know, this is not a lens that you are gonna use probably for low light situations. But again, it's a really good overall lens. Probably if I'm gonna be traveling and I'm not gonna be doing artistic portrait photography, and I'm gonna, you know, just be storytelling what's around me. Probably I'm not gonna need the 2.8, and probably this is a lens that I am going to have in my bag. And again, 24-105, basically you cover, you know, a wide angle. And also you get, you know, telephoto capabilities with this lens, you know, 105. So really good lens for that. I like the build of this lens. It's really well made. Also made out of, I believe it's magnesium or something like that. But again, it has a bunch of features, this lens. I'm not gonna go over the features again. Just what I use this lens for, mostly video. Now, and also when I wanna take one lens, you know, and travel abroad. Now this one right here, I love this lens. This is the, what should I call it? This one is the 90 millimeters. This is the 90 millimeters macro. This is a 2.8 lens. Now, because I do a lot of product photography, when it comes to really coming really close to your subject and really capturing those details, this lens actually delivers. So let me show you right here, right now. Lulu says sharp AF. I don't know if that means us F or out of focus. So let me see, what is Jeremy saying right here, because I cannot see the comments. Let me open the screen. Does Sony have a good 100 millimeters? Sony has, what, the 85, and then from the 85, what's the other one? Does Sony have it at 135? I don't know, but I think the largest one, well, this is the 90. This will be probably the closest one to that. I'm not a geek, you know, I actually buy lenses. I'm not a geek, look at all the lenses I have. But I'm not one of those guys that have to have the latest lens, although I have a lot of lenses. I don't think I have the entire collection. So I just get lenses when I actually look for a specific focal range, and I do my research, and when something suits me, you know, I get it. But I'm not a die-hard know-it-all. So that's why I don't want to get too much into the technical aspect, because it can be a little bit boring, you know, when you hear the same thing for a lot of lenses. Again, 90 millimeters, 2.8, amazing. Also, this lens has kind of like a shallow depth of field, you know, 2.8. It's great for portrait as well. This lens could probably be a lens that I may use instead of using the 85. So the 85, again, is a 1.4, but if I want to get a little bit of everything, if I want to shoot some portraits, but also want to get closer to objects, like for example, going to, I don't know, to the park, and you want to take pictures of textures on trees or bugs and stuff like that, and also you want to take a picture of your wife, your kids, and stuff like that, probably this is a good lens to have. You know, you get the 2.8, which is going to give you again, a smooth, blurry background, not like the 1.4, 1.2, but, you know, it's going to give you some. And also, you know, it's going to allow you to come really, really close to objects. So 90 millimeters, 2.8 from Sony. Awesome lens. Kind of expensive, but awesome lens. Now, the one that I have right here, this is another lens that I can actually pick up and go anywhere and know that I'm going to be covered. So this is the 16 to 35 millimeter lens. All right, so I think I left, I left the video on that one. So this is the, anyway, if I have to shoot this video again, I shoot it again, who cares? But this is the 16 to 35 millimeter. This is a 2.8 lens. Also, again, same depth of field as the other one. It's going to give you that smooth background. Again, it's not super shallow, but it's gonna give you the 2.8. Now, 16 to 35, you're gonna get super wide, and you're gonna get kind of like, you know, it's not a portrait lens, but what I use this lens is with the APS-C mode, I would toggle between the APS-C mode, and it gets me kind of like in between the 24 and 50 millimeter if the conversion is right. So basically, you could shoot portrait with this lens. You know, obviously, if you're not gonna crop in the face and you're shooting from here to here, I mean, you're gonna get an amazing job with this lens. And sometimes it's also light. That's what I like about this lens, and it's not huge like this telephoto lens. So here I am going to get a little bit of range. Again, toggling with the APS-C mode of the Sony, you are going to get kind of like double focal length because of the crop of the sensor. So I like this lens for, let's say if I'm gonna be outside and I'm gonna be reporting what I see around me, I'm going to be walking around the city, or I'm gonna be on a field trip. Probably this is a lens that I'm gonna have in my bag because it allows me to capture really, really wide. But if I wanna capture, you know, family and people, and, you know, even up to here, I can actually get different effects and different crops by switching to the APS-C mode. I've been doing that a lot, and it saves me from bringing a lot of lenses when I go out. And the quality is incredible, especially when I shoot with a 7R3. You know, you have tons of megapixels, and this lens, perfect. What else do I have here? Now, okay, this is the wide angle lens that if you really shoot a lot of wide shots, this is probably one of the lenses that you're gonna wanna get. This is the 12 to 24. So 24 is wide, right? Let me show you right here. So 24 is really wide, but 12, it's even wider. So I love this lens. So if I wanna exaggerate perspective, this is a lens that I am going to bring. Now, I've been experimenting a lot with shooting people and landscaping, or people and architecture, you know, and getting those elongated shots. I mean, this is the lens that's gonna deliver that. Now, I love this cap. This is the lens that, probably the only lens that I own with this type of cap. It comes with a lens hood. I mean, it doesn't come off. Again, the quality of this lens is really, really, really good. I believe this is the same magnesium material. This is from the G collection of Sony. Again, really, really good. It has a customizable button right here that you can customize for your focus or whatever you want to do. Most of the lenses that I'm talking about, they have autofocus and manual focus mode. This is the toggle right here. But this lens is good if you really are into wide shots. Let's say you're a realtor and you do a lot of real estate stuff. You go to houses. Probably this is the lens. This is the lens that's going to be in your bag, you know, along with something else. Now, again, 12 to 24. Remember, switching to APS-C, that's going to give you again about 16 to 35. So probably if you're going to be doing like apartment shoots for, you know, your listing and stuff like that, probably you only need this only lens for all your shots. Really, really good. I don't get to use it so much because, you know, most of the things I do are portrait and lifestyle and stuff like that, but I've been experimenting with perspective, and man, I like the results that I'm getting out of this lens. What else? Now, let's move forward with the one that I have in my camera. Okay, this lens lives with me. In fact, it's in the camera because it's the lens that I use the most. This is my everyday lens. I love this lens. Now, this lens is the 24 to 70 millimeter. This is an f2.8. Again, this is a G Master lens. You know, G Master stands for badass, also stands for expensive, unfortunately. But this lens is really, really good. Again, it features the autofocus toggle right here and manual focus. You have a customizable button right here, like almost, I think every single G Master lens has that. Let me see if the 90 does. Yeah, the 90 has even more buttons and stuff like that. But now this lens is a lens that if, you know, if you're gonna be shooting portrait, if you're gonna be shooting a little bit of architecture and stuff like that, and you had to buy only one lens, this is the lens that I would recommend you buy. There are several reasons why this probably should be your first lens if you're gonna switch to the Sony system. Very few reasons. Actually, a lot of reasons. Number one, you do have that low light capability. Okay, this is the 2.8. Okay, the aperture of this lens goes from 2.8. That's the widest aperture you get, so you're gonna get those smooth backgrounds. Now, the 24 to 70 millimeters is gonna give you a lot of range. And again, remember, switching to that APS-C mode, you know, shooting with a crop sensor, you're gonna get also like a much longer reach with this lens. So 2.8. 24 to 70 millimeter, you're probably gonna cover all the bases with this lens. So if you're new to the Sony system, you wanna get one lens, this is the lens that I recommend. And it's in fact the first Sony lens I bought. No, actually, no, it wasn't the first. But one of the first Sony lenses I bought for G Master lenses I bought. Not first Sony lens, first G Master lens. Again, Sony has released a lot of lenses in the past couple of years, and if there's something that I like and I can actually use it to pay my bills, boom, I got them. So a very good lens, 24 to 70 millimeter, one of my favorite ones. Forgot to tell you something. So the one that I have right here, this is not a lens, but this is an adapter. This adapter actually allows you to double the focal range of this lens right here. This is the 70 to 200, so it allows you to double the focal range. So Sony has a 400 millimeters. So with this adapter, I get up to 400 millimeters. The only downside is that from being a 2.8, it becomes an f4, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, again, if I am going to be out and about and I'm gonna shoot a lot of landscape and I want like a super long reach, 400 millimeters, one lens and one adapter, so I don't have to buy both lenses, because the other lens is about I think it's a little bit over what, 2,500 or 2,000, something like that. So this costs me a lot less, and I get both lenses just with a small adapter. Boom, that's that. Now let's talk about my latest lens that I bought. This guy right here. This, let me just switch to the camera. Boop. So this one that I have right here, this is the 24 millimeter. This lens is the latest Sony lens. This is a 24 millimeter, but now the good thing about this lens is that it is the first Sony lens that is a 1.4 aperture. Now 1.4 stands for bokeh. So if you love the bokeh, you know, if you love the blurry background, and you love the wide angles, this lens is gonna deliver, because it's the perfect combination. Now, I actually had one time the Sigma 24 to 1.4. I did not like the lens. I returned it right away. And I'm not a person that returns lenses. I usually do a lot of research. I've heard a lot of good things. But when I got the lens, I honestly didn't like it. I don't know if the lens was actually not working for me or what, but I just couldn't get like sharp images with the lens. Now, with this lens right here, it is so sharp. I also been shooting a lot of my recent pictures with this lens. And again, in combination with the APS-C mode, I mean, some people say that, you know, they don't like that. Some people love it. I've been doing that a lot when I'm actually not wanting to haul a lot of gear with me. So the 24 millimeters is gonna give you the wide angle. The 1.4 is gonna give you the shallow depth of field. And whatever you can create with this is up to your mind, because it's an incredible lens. It's really awesome. Also, it's probably one of the lightest lenses for the full frame family. I don't know how heavy it is, but it is really, really, really light. It has this lens hood right here, which is not too bulky neither. So look at that. Now, when you compare this lens with the, let's say, my everyday lens, you can see the difference right here. This is the 24 to 48. I'm sorry, 24 to 70, and this is the 24 millimeters. So really, really good. All right, so moving forward with the lenses, let's talk a little bit about the Sigma. Oh no, that's actually the Canon Sigma. I was looking for the lens. Let's talk about this one that I have right here. So this is the 85 millimeter f1.8. Okay, so remember before we were talking about portraits, and 85 is kind of like an ideal focal length for portrait. Probably it is the minimum focal length that I like for portrait. You know, you can shoot with 55, but the way I shoot, I mean, I shoot very, very close. So having something like this long is really, really, really nice for the type of, you know, very up close shot. So this one is a 1.8. It's not a 1.4. And you say, okay, yeah, 1.4, 1.8, you know, what's the difference? Well, actually, the difference is not that much. The build quality of this lens is incredible. I think this lens is under $600 when you compare it with this lens that is over, I think, $1,500. This is the 85 millimeter 1.4. Now, this lens is very similar to this lens, but at the same time, it's not. This lens is very, very, very small. It's probably less than half of the price of this lens. This lens features the autofocus, manual focus toggle. It features a customizable button right here, just like this lens. The 1.8 and 1.4, is that a big difference? Well, I mean, there is a difference right there, but you know, when you just want to hold very light gear, this is probably one of the lenses that I bring. It is one of the lenses that I travel with. So if I'm going to be doing traveling, I know I'm going to be doing some portrait, probably I don't bring this lens. This lens I use it more at the studio because it's really, it's not really heavy, but it's kind of heavier than this one, you know. And when you pack a lot of gear, every bit of gear counts. So this lens, I rather sacrifice a little bit of the bokeh and bokeh, whatever you want to call it. And I take this lens. So this lens is being beat up and it has a couple of dents. You know, I try to take care of my lenses as much as I can. And I don't know how they get beat up because they never go unattended. They always go padded and stuff like that. But this one, I use it a lot, so it has some scuff marks. That's this lens hood, which I really, really, really like. So again, if you're on a budget and you want to get into the telephoto game, in the portrait game, this is a lens that I would recommend. Now let's do it again for the edits. So if you're into portrait photography, you're on a budget, probably this is a lens that you are not going to be disappointed. It is pretty affordable, around $600. It gives you amazing bokeh capabilities, you know, the shallow depth of field, 1.8, and it's a great focal length for portrait, 85 millimeters. So really recommend this lens. Moving forward to the little ones right here. Now, these ones are the ones that I use on my A6500. A6500 is an APS-C camera. There are not a lot of lenses for APS-C, at least from Sony. There are some from Sigmas, and I have some from Sigma right here. But if you have an APS-C camera, meaning that the sensor is a lot smaller than the full frame, I mean, it's not a lot smaller, but the quality is amazing. These lenses, I use them a lot. Now, these lenses can also be used on a full frame camera like the Sony, which one is this one that I have right here? This is the 7.3. On the 7.3, so, and always I have to check because the A9, the only difference that has the dial, and the 7R3 is exactly as the 7.3. So this one, you can also use it on your full frame camera. So let's say you don't have a A6500 or A6300, and you like the size factor of this lens, but you want to have your camera full frame because you may like some of the lenses. Well, these lenses are not going to disappoint you. This one that I have right here, this is the 55, I'm sorry, this is a full frame lens. This is the one that I wanted to show you. This one that I have right here is from Sigma. This is a 35 millimeters. Is it 35? Yes, this is the 35 millimeters from Sigma lens. Really, really, really incredible. This is a 1.4 lens. Again, it's not a super expensive lens. It's really, it has a shallow depth of field. It's a 1.4, really good rendition capabilities of this lens right here. And toss it in the bag. It's light, APS-C mode, and you are there shooting. Now, this one that I have right here was one of the first lenses that I got for my A6500. This lens right here is a super wide lens. It goes from 10 to 18. It's probably not the best Sony lens that I own, but when you throw it on a camera like the A6500 and you want to stabilize it with a gimbal, for example, this is the perfect lens. Also, if you're gonna be vlogging, this is the best lens because it's a 10 millimeter 10 millimeter focal length to 18 millimeters, so it's the widest lens I own right now. And again, you can use it with a full frame camera as well. Look how tiny it is. Very, very tiny. If you remove the lens hood, it's even tinier. So really recommend this lens, and it's not too expensive. Now, another lens that I forgot to talk about is the 55 millimeter from Sigma. I love this lens. This is the 1.8 millimeter. No, this is not the 1.8 millimeter. Sorry, the Sigma. Where's the Sigma? Actually, I don't have it. I do have it. They're very, very similar. Check this out. I always get confused. They're identical, especially when you look at the lens like this. They're identical. So the one that I forgot to talk about, full frame, is the 55 millimeters. And I'm glad that I'm doing this live, because if this would have been a recorded video that was like this, I wouldn't be happy. But anyway, always not prepared to do videos, always being spontaneous and expressing yourself. So 55 millimeter 1.8. Why would I choose this lens? There are many reasons why. Number one, look at the size factor. Now, this is one of the smallest full frame lenses that I own. This is very, very tiny. Compared to something similar, what would it be something similar to this? What can I compare with? I mean, there's nothing that I can compare it with, actually, from what I have. Maybe the 85 millimeter. It's kind of like that, but at the same time, you wonder why my lenses are beat up. Kind of like that, but this one is a little bit bigger in diameter. So the 85, yeah, probably is the one that I would compare with, but look at the size of this lens. It's completely incredible. Also, 1.8, it gives you amazing shallow depth of field. The quality of size lenses are incredible, immaculate lenses, and super, super light. So if you're looking for something compact that's gonna give you a little bit of everything, you know, if you're not gonna be shooting super wide shots, and you're this is kind of like a you know, like a street lens, maybe a portrait lens. If you like to shoot, you know, from here to here, the reason why is because if you come so close to the subject, you know, because you know 55 millimeters considered to be a portrait lens. But I personally don't like them because you get a lot of distortion when you come super, super close to the subject. So if you shoot something from here to here, this is the lens. You know, this is the lens because it's gonna give you amazing, amazing, amazing quality. So that's that. Now, going to my last size lens, and this one is an APS-C lens. This is the 16 to 70 millimeter. This, if you own a 6300, this is probably one of the lenses that you're gonna love owning because they cover all the bases. Also has a constant aperture of an f4. You're not gonna get those super blurry backgrounds, but if one lens fits all is what you're into, this is the lens to get. If you own a 6300, a 6000, and a 6500, this lens is gonna give you you know, a lot of reach, and probably is the first lens that you should own, I think, if you own, you know, any of those APS-C systems from Sony. It can also be used on the full frame, like I mentioned before. I use this lens when I wanna travel with two cameras, if I'm gonna be documenting something. A lot of the time, if weight is a concern, I would actually pack this lens, bring my 7.3, for example, switch to APS-C mode, and now I have, you know, from 16 to 70 millimeters. You know, a lot of the things that you see on my YouTube channel, which is not that much, one of the videos have been shot with this one. And you know, when you upload it to YouTube and you downsize to 1080p, there's not a lot of difference in the quality, and it still renders you know, amazing quality. Now, when weight is not a concern, I would bring the 24 to 105 instead, or and the reason why the 24 to 105, ideally I would love to shoot with a 24 to 70, but that's a lens that I'm always gonna need if I'm shooting outside. So it's a little bit more affordable. So that was it, guys. This is my very first video review. I hope you have enjoyed it, and again, subscribe to the channel, Tune in for more. I'll see you soon. Take care.